50 points. That is the number that should terrify every single Lewis Hamilton fan right now. 50 points. That is the gap Kimi Antonelli has just opened up in the 2026 Formula One World Championship after the Hungarian Grand Prix. And if you think that number sounds bad, wait until you hear how it happened. Because this is not a story about Hamilton losing pace. This is not a story about Ferrari building a slow car. This is a story about a season slowly slipping away race by race, penalty by penalty, mistake by mistake. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why insiders in the paddock are starting to whisper that Lewis Hamilton's dream of an 8th world title, the one that would make him the greatest of all time by any statistical measure, might already be over before the season has even reached its final third. So let's rewind and look at how we actually got here. Because at the start of this championship battle, Hamilton looked like a genuine threat. The SF26 was fast. Ferrari had built a car that could fight on pure pace with anyone on the grid, and Hamilton, in his second full season wearing red, looked settled, comfortable, ready to finally deliver the title Ferrari has been chasing for years. But Formula One championships are not won in a single fast lap. They are won over 24 races, and it is in the accumulation of small errors, strategic misfires, and bad luck that titles are actually lost. And that is exactly what has been happening to Hamilton over the last several race weekends, starting with an incident at Spa-Francorchamps that put him on the FIA's radar, a collision that meant every single thing he did afterward would be scrutinized just a little bit harder. And then came Hungary, a race weekend that should have been one of Hamilton's best of the season, a track that suited the Ferrari, a car that was genuinely fast enough to fight for pole position, and for a moment it looked like magic was about to happen. Hamilton was fighting Lando Norris for what would have been a historic 10th pole position at the Hungaroring, and he put together a lap that had him provisionally on top of the timesheets. But then, in the closing moments of qualifying, everything unraveled. First, Ferrari made the call to send him out ahead of Norris for the final runs, a decision Hamilton later admitted caught him off guard, saying in his own words that it was, quote, "a bit of a shock to me." And on that final lap, he had what he described as a snap at turn 1, losing precious time instantly, and the margin at the end of the session was almost impossible to comprehend. Norris beat him to pole by 0.012 seconds, 12 thousandths of a second, arguably the cruelest possible way to lose a piece of motorsport history. But the story did not end there, because during that same session, Hamilton found himself in the path of Oscar Piastri's McLaren, impeding the Australian driver on a crucial lap, and Piastri did not hide his frustration, snapping over team radio, quote, "Fuck me, man," as he passed Hamilton's Ferrari, and the stewards wasted no time, summoning both drivers and their teams to a hearing, and the verdict landed like a hammer, a 3-place grid penalty for Hamilton, wiping out that brilliant qualifying lap entirely and dropping him from a front row start down to 5th on the grid before the race had even begun. And then, as if the universe was testing him, the race itself brought even more pain, because under a virtual safety car, Ferrari pitted him for fresh tires, a sensible call on paper, but one that put him ahead of championship rival Kimi Antonelli during a period where track position should have stayed frozen, forcing Ferrari to hand the place straight back out of fear of a penalty. And then later in the race, the stewards found something almost impossible to believe. They clocked Hamilton's pit lane exit speed at 80.1 kilometers per hour, exactly 1/10 of a kilometer per hour over the limit, and hit him with a 5-second penalty that dropped him from a hard-fought 4th place down to 5th. And Sky Sports pundit Anthony Davidson, a man who has driven in this sport himself and understands exactly how fine these margins are, reviewed the footage and could not even explain the call, saying on air, quote, "I can't work out why he gets a penalty." And Hamilton, clearly exhausted and frustrated, summed up his own weekend afterward in blunt terms, calling it, quote, "pretty bad, pretty frustrating." And here is where the real damage becomes visible, because while Hamilton was fighting through penalty after penalty, losing positions he had legitimately earned on track, Kimi Antonelli was quietly, efficiently, ruthlessly banking points. And the gap between the two drivers is now standing at a staggering 50 points. And in a sport where a single race win is worth 25 points, That means Hamilton would need to outscore Antonelli by an average of more than 4 points every single remaining race weekend just to close the gap by the end of the season. And that is before you even account for the fact that Antonelli is driving with the kind of composure and consistency that young, hungry title challengers bring when they smell blood. So now the question everyone in the paddock is asking is simple but brutal. Is this title fight already over? And honestly, the answer depends on who you ask, because 50 points with roughly a third of the season still remaining is a mountain. But it is not an impossible mountain. Formula One history is full of comebacks that looked mathematically insane until they suddenly weren't. But here is the uncomfortable truth that Ferrari and Hamilton both need to face. Comebacks do not happen by accident. They happen when a team eliminates the unforced errors. When a driver stops handing free points to a rival through penalties and strategic confusion. And right now Ferrari and Hamilton are doing the opposite. They are bleeding points through pit lane miscalculations, through qualifying strategy calls that backfire, through moments of hesitation that turn potential poles into fifth-place starts, and Hamilton himself seems acutely aware of this, telling his race engineer over the radio during the Hungarian Grand Prix, quote, handing out penalties like crazy, a phrase that captures both his frustration with the stewards and, whether he intended it or not, an admission of just how costly this run of bad luck has become. And there is a deeper strategic question here too, because Hamilton later revealed that he disagreed with Ferrari's decision to pit him under the virtual safety car in the first place, saying afterward, quote, I would never have stopped, suggesting that if the team had simply left him out on track, this entire penalty saga, the position swap, the pit lane speeding infringement, might never have happened at all. And that raises a genuinely difficult question for Ferrari's management heading into the summer break. Is this a driver problem? Or is this a team problem? Because right now it looks like a bit of both. And the timing of all of this could not be worse, because Formula One has now entered its mandatory summer shutdown. 2 full weeks where every factory goes dark under strict FIA rules. No development, no upgrades, nothing. Which means Ferrari and Hamilton now have to sit with this 50-point deficit for 2 agonizing weeks before they get a single chance to fight back at Zandvoort. And that kind of enforced pause can go one of 2 ways. It can give a team time to regroup, to analyze every mistake, to come back sharper and more disciplined, or it can let frustration fester, let doubt creep in, let a driver start questioning decisions that used to come naturally. And which version of Ferrari and Hamilton shows up in the Netherlands might just define the entire second half of this championship. And it is worth remembering that Formula One has seen gaps like this close before. In 2010, several drivers were still mathematically in the fight deep into the final races, despite huge swings in momentum, and even Hamilton himself knows what it feels like to chase down a seemingly impossible deficit, because his own career has been built on moments where he refused to accept that a title was gone simply because the numbers looked bad on paper. But the difference this time is age, is machinery, is the fact that Antonelli is not some inconsistent rookie who will crack under pressure. He is a driver who has looked composed, mature, and mistake-free at exactly the moments when Hamilton has looked rattled, and that psychological gap might end up mattering just as much as the 50 points on the timing sheet. Because titles are not only won with raw pace, they are won with the mental discipline to stop compounding errors when the pressure is at its highest. And right now, Ferrari's entire summer break strategy meeting should be built around one single question. How do they get Hamilton out of this penalty spiral and back into the version of himself that has won 7 world championships? Because if they cannot answer that question before Zandvoort, 50 points could very quickly become 60, 70, or worse. So here is what we want to know from you. And I mean this genuinely. Do you think Lewis Hamilton can still fight back from 50 points down and win this championship? Or has Kimi Antonelli's lead become simply too big to overcome at this stage of the season? Drop your prediction in the comments below right now. I want to see exactly where the fan base stands on this. And if you want to be the first to know when this gap changes, when Hamilton fights back, or when Antonelli extends the lead even further, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because trust me, the moment cars roll out at Zandvoort after the break, we are going to be here breaking down every single lap of this title fight before anyone else gets to it. So like this video if you want more deep dives like this one, share it with a fellow F1 fan who needs to see just how tight or how over this championship battle really is, and I will see you in the next one.